I'm not a big fan of powerlifting for developing athletic muscle. But am I wrong? Let's find out. Let's start with the most fatigue-inducing, CNS-crushing lift inside of powerlifting, and that's going to be the deadlift. What we can see is that this is a movement where there's going to be a strong concentric. There's even going to be a controlled eccentric. Some powerlifters need to train with a little bit of a bounce. Some don't want to have a bounce. They want to have a dead stop. But this movement is fantastic for developing absolute strength. Okay, I'm not budging on this one. The sumo deadlift, I feel, is absolutely worthless in regards to athletic performance, strictly athletic performance. I know a lot of people are going to comment about adduction and what it can do for your hips, but there's other ways that we can get that done that I believe are a lot more effective. Now, the conventional deadlift, I think this is fantastic, again, for raw strength, but there's some issues with posture. There's some issues with tightness and mobility that can arise, which means in my mind, there's other lifts that we can use that can transfer better. Now, the saving grace of the conventional deadlift is that it's a pull and it's a hinge, and that's great for developing that posterior chain strength. Pulling and hinging are absolutely essential for sports performance. But if we would look at what we're doing inside the pulling and hinging for a deadlift and then compare that to other movements, there's other exercises that use pulling and use hinging in a little bit more dynamic method. And we can start with just using a technical coordination movement, like a power snatch. Boo! And if we think about the dynamic aspect of a power snatch, we're looking at speed. It doesn't necessarily have to be based around an intensity around load. We can focus on the intensity of the movement, which then can lead to greater coordination and greater co-contractions, which is an essential skill of athletic muscle. That's what's making muscle more athletic. Contrary to what some fitness influencers might tell you who don't train anybody because they don't comprehend athletic muscle. I'm giving away one free Swole shirt, and all you guys have to do is 1, comment down below. 2, make sure that all of your channel notifications are active to Garage Strength. And 3, show up to our Tuesday public live to find out if you won this sweet Swole shirt. I'll concede that in Garage Strength program design, we use absolute strength movements. We know that absolute strength and getting extraordinarily strong, like powerlifters are, can increase speed, it can increase power output, it can increase just overall mass as well. But the big factor here is that we've got to recognize what neural intelligence is, and we have to understand how we can actually improve the intelligence of our muscles. We have a really good example. We have an athlete, AJ Baylor. He came to us squatting 450 pounds when he was in 10th grade, bench pressing in the mid 200s, close to 300 pounds. Extraordinarily strong for a 10th grader. But one thing that happened with AJ is that he still was a decent football player. He was a decent shot putter, but he was getting outthrown by other athletes who were half his strength levels. They had a little bit greater neural intelligence. But what ended up occurring is that we started to bring in movements like reflexive exercises, technical coordination movements, plyometric exercises. And while we did this, we still cultivated AJ's absolute strength. And what ended up happening, he became a Division I shot putter. And he continued to develop that absolute raw power while still improving his rate of coordination. And that's the big factor. As a strength coach, we have to recognize what is this individual's prowess and continue to develop that while also bringing in other areas to try and improve their overall athleticism. So in Garage Strength program design, often what we do is we try to use an absolute strength movement to elicit some type of response, and then we'll pair that with a faster exercise. And this is what we do inside of our at peak strength. We try to lay out specific types of supersets that we've found here at Garage Strength to be extraordinarily successful. Now, the first example is going to be doing a back squat, okay? So this would be a traditional superset. This would be a traditional contrast method here. So let's say you go 6 sets of 2 or 6 sets of 3 at around 75 to 80%. You're here, and ideally, in this case, I wouldn't be using 70 kilos. I would probably be using somewhere around 180 kilos for a fast double. Then you're gonna rest about 40 to 45 seconds. And this is something that we did exactly with AJ, is that we would do contrast training, traditionally on that leg power day. So we'd hit 2 to 3 reps, and at the time that might look like 375 for AJ when he was a junior in high school. Then you get into it and you go do simple box jumps. One thing a lot of powerlifters struggle with is that they struggle to just go here, touch, and go, okay? Boom. When powerlifters first start jumping and doing things more athletic, they might look like this, here, like that, okay? But if we can train them consistently, now we can turn their monster strength into a little bit more elasticity, into a little bit more explosiveness. And that's what we do inside of our app with over 700 different exercises. You can download Peak Strength, use that leg power day, or if you're on impulse day, you would use a contrast method that we call the garage strength contrast method. Now, we're gonna do the back squat for a double or a triple. 75, 80, maybe even as high as 85%. On impulse day, it'll be a little bit less. So it'll be about 70 to 75%. You're gonna rest about a minute, and then we're gonna do a reflexive movement. A reflexive exercise is going to force your body to be more neurally intelligent. We're gonna work through various ranges of motion with various speeds and very, very dynamic movements. Come here, boom. And you gotta try and hold that hip lock. Here, boom. Hold that hip lock, don't hop. Have that DTC, boom. One more, boom. Now, we can do both sides, and then you would end up resting for about 2.5 minutes and go back. So when you're taking that power lifter and you're trying to get them to be more coordinated, be more athletic, you can start with introducing them to that simple contrast, that traditional contrast method. Then after 2 to 3 months, do exactly what we did with AJ and start to build into that garage strength contrast method where you start to use those reflexive exercises. And now you're taking that really, really strong individual and you're getting them to be more coordinated and more athletic. Now, everybody knows that I love the bench press, and they'll bring this up that, Dane, you sort of talk trash on powerlifting, but you still love to bench press. You've got your guys bench pressing all the time. You have women bench pressing over 300 pounds. But here's a big thing. Bench press, I believe, transfers very, very well over to the sports performance world because your upper body tends to be more fast twitch than your lower body. Now, bear with me here. Your triceps, your pecs, your shoulders will be more fast twitch than, say, your quads. So then when somebody comes in like AJ with a huge bench press, it's very easy to transfer them over to doing things more dynamically like a pad bench or an explosive push-up or anything along those lines. The other issues I have is that with the low bar back squat, posture can get affected negatively. With the conventional deadlift, posture can be negatively affected. And then finally, going back to the bench press, a lot of old school powerlifters, not necessarily new school, but a lot of old school powerlifters tend to just bench all the time and not treat that upper body structure in a manner that needs to be improved for sports performance. And that's where we're gonna go to this next exercise that can help alleviate this issue. So again, one area is that powerlifters can develop a tremendous amount of upper body strength. They're absolutely freakishly strong with the bench, but just like AJ, they tend not to be the best at calisthenic movements. Something as simple as a pull-up here, okay? Just boom, boom. And what we ended up doing with AJ and developing that structural integrity to lead to better performance, because we would end up using things like a behind the neck jerk, a behind the neck power jerk, a linebacker jerk. And he got extraordinarily explosive from doing those exercises. And then as we developed that upper back for various sports like football, now that can improve shoulder health. We can increase mobility because we have greater structural integrity and we lengthen the lats. So we can do weighted pull-ups here, like this. Poof, poof, poof. And that can even lead to some sense of dynamic trunk control. And then we can get even more creative. As we get a powerlifter to get better at traditional pull-ups, we can use a chin-up grip. Now we're lighting up their biceps a little bit more. We can use a neutral grip here. Poof, poof, poof. We can even start to use ring pull-ups here for a little bit more range of motion. And we can continuously develop the lat strength, lengthen the lats, improve the bicep strength, improve the entire shoulder girdle, which in turn will backdoor and maximize that upper body strength that we get from doing those bench presses. So bench presses are great in the powerlifting realm. Bench presses are great in the sports performance realm, but we've got to make sure that we're developing that structural integrity so we can keep building upon that foundation, which then leads to greater power output from the upper body. And you can develop your own upper body strength inside of Peak Strength just by downloading Peak Strength today and then selecting the athletic fitness portion where you can actually choose that you want to develop that muscle, or you want to develop that weight loss, or you want to develop that strength similar to that strength that powerlifters have. Now enter into the squat. We talked about squat posture earlier when we were going into the bench press. So I'm going to demonstrate, right? If we look at the traditional method that a powerlifter should be using, they should be using this. I'm not saying that they should not low bar, but if we look at a low bar, traditionally, the best way to lift the most amount of weight is going to be here, okay? Low bar, sit back, and try and keep those shins as vertical as possible. So here, boom. Now, what does that tell us? One, we're gonna have extraordinarily strong hamstrings. But some of the issues is that we won't be as upright with our trunk. We're not gonna have as good a mobility in our ankles, and that can lead to an issue in the realm of sports performance. And so when I say powerlifting sucks, or I trigger all the powerlifters out there in the world, I'm looking through the lens of sports performance. Is a low bar back squat the worst thing? Nope. I believe that a lot of athletes can benefit from low bar back squatting with full range of motion. I'll even use our own Sam Mattis, the 2021 Olympian, who tends to squat with like a mid bar to low bar, but he still will squat full range of motion. So one thing that we can do is tend to squat more high bar with this full range of motion. And you can even do a couple sets of low bar squats if you still feel like you need to go really, really heavy, and then back end that portion of your squat workout with some low bar work. Now, we also love to do things like double bounce here, or even pause back squats here. And then we can even get into something like front squats or zombie squats. And we'll even use back squat to boxes. Now we'll tend to use a box like 12 inches instead of a box at 18 to 20. The big factor is that low bar could diminish range of motion in the ankles. There's very little knees going forward. And we like to coach knees going forward, but going backward. That can help the dry phase of sprinting. That can help with jumping. The other thing is posture can lead to poor posture coming forward. Typically, I want a little bit more upright trunk. So we'll use squats, and we'll sometimes use low bar squats, but typically use pause squats, back squats, zombie squats, and front squats, along with our single leg squats. So in the realm of sports performance, is powerlifting overrated? Does powerlifting suck? Not really. I would say 2 out of 3 isn't bad. I would still avoid conventional deadlifts because I think you can get pulling power elsewhere. I would still avoid sumo pulls, okay? I think that those are not as effective. Use technical coordination movements. Make sure you blow up your bench press. Use those weighted pull-ups and other explosive exercises for your upper body as well. So if you guys need help with your programming, head over to peakstrength.app and you can download Peak Strength today and select the athletic fitness portion of our app. That's gonna help you transfer all of those gains that you've had in the powerlifting realm over to your general fitness and improve whatever it is that you want to focus on: muscle building, strength building, or even weight loss. Because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.